Welcome to Labor Lounge Podcast. I'm Anthony Abrantes, Assistant Executive Secretary Treasurer of the Eastern Atlantic States Regional Council of Carpenters, the Carpenters Union.
And I'm Cyndie Williams, Executive Director of the CCT. Together as your co-hosts, we'll explore the world of organized labor, bringing you behind-the-scenes stories and insights from inspiring union leaders, dedicated partners, and community change makers. In each episode, we dive into authentic conversation to uncover what unions are really about beyond the headlines and the myths.
Whether you're new to the movement or a union ally, our conversation, showcasing diverse voices and real-life stories, will explore union hurdles, triumphs, labor's rich history, its role in workforce development, all while shedding light on how unions create lasting change and foster economic growth and creating generational wealth.
Join us as we build a broader coalition, elevate future generations, and showcase how unions contribute to creating a positive cultural legacy.
Tune in, get informed, and find out how organized labor is making a difference.
Today we're joined by Tim Wakefield, founder and CEO of Deadcom Seas Marine Services. With over a decade of experience in marine construction and subsea infrastructure, Tim brings a wealth of knowledge shaped by a distinguished background in the U.S. Navy. As a certified commercial diver, EMT, DMT, and air diving supervisor, Tim is deeply embedded in the operational and safety standards of the offshore industry. He holds a bachelor's degree in construction management and leads design-build projects across both domestic and international waters. Under his leadership, Deadcom Seas has been known for its ability to streamline complex operations while upholding the highest standards in safety and performance. Welcome, Tim.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, good to see you, Tim.
That's great to see you.
I got to meet Tim, I guess it's probably been over a year at least, when we met down in Upper Marlboro when we started first having dialogue about becoming partners.
No, actually, I think we met originally almost 4.5 years ago now.
But when we finally solidified something,
Yeah.
So we've come a long way. Tim's obviously in the diving industry, and most people don't necessarily align that with carpentry or construction trades.
Yep.
But Tim and his business model, and obviously his focus on professionalism, quality, craftsmanship, decided he wanted to have a good partnership. And I think so far it's been a great partnership, right?
Oh, it's been a fantastic partnership. It's great support for us and for the guys, and it's nice to not only for them to feel like they have a voice within our company, but to also feel like they have a voice outside and that they are represented.
Yeah. And just to touch on a little bit about how, there's overlap with, underwater construction and on-land construction. Talk a little bit about how there's an overlay between marine infrastructure, the work you do underwater relative to on-land, and how it doesn't matter for on-land or underwater, union values, productivity, safety are extremely important regardless of where you're working and operating.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, those are part of our core foundation as a company, and then even as the union, that's the core foundation is, the tasks are very similar. If what you do on land is essentially what you're going to do in the water. Now, does it change task to task? Yes. And is it a little more difficult in some scenarios with zero visibility and maybe a strong current? Yeah, absolutely. But it's pivotal that everything is built into that aspect of safety and trust and knowing who you have on the other side working with you, because when you're in the water, at least for us, it's those people up top are the ones that are going to save your life if something goes wrong, because in our industry, if something goes wrong, something goes really wrong, and you want to know you can depend on those people. And the nice thing about the union is they help support that by paying for them for their physicals and stuff, making sure they're up to date, their certs, stuff like that, sending them to other classes. I think you guys started doing the DMT one now. So that's huge. It's very pivotal to creating that safe work environment where those guys feel like they can thrive.
Yeah. And to Tim's point, we've invested in a training center in Sicklerville, New Jersey, which was really specific to really this partnership and many that we're trying to form related to underwater construction, because it is non-traditional. It's not something necessarily people associate with carpentry. And versus on land, it's an environment with so much uncertainty versus being on the ground. So
Sure. If you could just take a half step back, it's not in here as something to talk about, but for our listeners that have no idea what your business is like, can you just give a a description of what exactly your team is doing?
Yeah, so we do a multitude of different things. So commercial diving is our core foundation. Commercial diving is very broad, so we do everything from underwater construction, so working on port infrastructures, bridges, things of that nature, to doing like subsea telecoms, power cabling, so like your export cables with offshore wind, any offshore oil and gas infrastructure work like that. We are also on the salvage side, so we work with Schmidt, who is the oldest and largest salvage company in the world. They're 160 years old. We're their primary workforce. We're also part of their OPA 90, so the Coast Guard Emergency Response, which was their partnership with Don John, which Don John's right over here in New Jersey. Mm-hmm. So we do a lot of great work with Don John and Schmidt. They're both great companies to work with. And then we have 2 full-time underwater archaeologists. We do underwater archaeology with DPAA, so recovering lost soldiers, sailors, airmen from all the conflicts, and helping in that aspect. And then we also just actually started a rope access and NDT division this last November, so doing rope access non-destructive testing on that.
That's great. That's great. So our industry, the union standards is fair pay, fair wages. Yep. Even in marine construction, I'm sure you're seeing, the race to the bottom, if you will. Can you talk about some of the labor practices that you encounter, substandard, et cetera?
It's, one of the reasons when we started DCS was creating that fair pay of where we thought the guys should be and never going below that amount. And that was one of the reasons the union approached us, because we were already paying higher than union in some in some areas. Obviously, when you get to like New York City or you go to the West Coast and go to like California, it's a little bit higher. But we were already doing that, but that was one of our premises, because we wanted to see that change in the industry, because there's such a wide variety of pay. You got guys making $14, $15 an hour down in Florida diving, and frankly, if you called me, I wouldn't even get out of bed. So it's knowing the worth of the guys, and then again, that makes them feel like they come to work, they're valued, and that their voice is going to be heard. It's, we're investing in them. We're putting the money where it should be, which is in the people, because it's a people-centric industry.
With that said, you're talking about a dangerous, complex industry that you're working in. How important is training to you? Obviously, it's very important to us. How important is training to you in making sure that you're protecting your folks, but you're also protecting yourself as a company from some of those risks and challenges?
It's important. I think the refresher training and keeping people up to date on stuff is important. It's good to keep things in their mind. And, we even as a company, we're learning now that redoing stuff on a job-to-job basis every time the guys, and just refreshing stuff, and not even making them sit through an actual class, but just say, hey, we're going to read through this and we're going to go through this, just to keep it fresh in everybody's mind, so we're all on the same page, especially when you start getting into some of these more high-risk activities, especially like on the salvage side. It's very pivotal that they have an understanding of what the potential of those things are and how we mitigate those risks.
When you say salvage, help me, because I'm not understanding. What exactly do you mean by
talk
salvage?
A little bit about
shipwrecks, or what are we talking about?
Talk a bit about off the coast of South America, the one story you were talking about.
So it's anything from the car carrier fire in Newark, right? We were out there with Schmidt, Don John, so we did that. We go fight fires. We've went out and paid on our own, DCS as a company, to get some of these guys marine firefighter qualified, rope access qualified, and we bought into that relationship with our clients because they support us so well, and we wanted to be able to support them even more because they like our workforce. Divers are very versatile people. They're usually jacks of all trades. So salvage is keeping vessels from sinking or raising sunken vessels or structures. So, Baltimore Bridge is another good example. We weren't necessarily on that one, but Don John was, and they did a phenomenal job on that one. There's, you look back in history, there was the Costa Concordia, which was the big cruise liner in Italy that went down. That was a big salvage project. There was all the major salvage companies there. Even more recently, you had the cargo ship there in Savannah that tipped over, and that was a long project too. Like even I know Weeks and Kiewit, and then we're on that in that aspect. So there's a lot of different things you can do in salvage, and salvage is fun. Honestly, everybody loves salvage because it's something different. It's not just construction work. You get to go break shit, for lack of better words.
Destroy.
Yeah, exactly. Everybody needs a little rage room every once in a while, right?
So how did you get, we didn't talk about how you even got into it as a career. Is it through the military? You know, how did you find this niche background?
I found it through the Navy. I went through dive school in the Navy, and I just went down that road, and I've always loved the ocean. And when I was in the Navy, I honestly spent more time in the Middle East and Asia Pacific, not on a ship, than I did since I've become a commercial diver. I spent more time on a ship. But I've always loved the ocean, so it's always something that's drawn me. And, when I was getting ready to transition out, I was like, well, what do I want to do with my life? I was like, oh, I don't really want to grow up and have an office job, ironically. So I was like, oh, you know what? I like dive school. I'll go to commercial dive school. Mm-hmm. I'll eat up my GI Bill and, soak up some money. And then, I went out into the oil and gas field and in the Gulf, and then worked in India, Malaysia, Equatorial Guinea, and went overseas, and then came back and started doing heavy civil construction and salvage. And by that point, I love it. I mean, there's nothing better to me. There's nothing better, because it's just you and that task in the water, yep. And that's all that matters in that time and moment.
So that said, you've had a ton of experience in international waters.
Yes.
Do they have unionized construction there? Is there a compare and contrast? Can you compare what you've seen over there, whether union or non-union?
So I would say, obviously predominantly oil and gas is a non-union work, but it really just depends. I didn't really get the pleasure of working too much over in Europe or really at all. And now we're getting more exposure to that. And, I've had trips over there with our clients and stuff like that, and understanding that more. They're more unionized over there, but working Asia Pacific and Africa, no, it's not so much unionized, but, it's really on the individual to negotiate their own day rate and stay firm where they think they're valued at. And, yeah, so you have the rates are very different, and then necessarily the contractors don't care about you. They're unfortunately.
I was going to say, do you see a difference in the safety standards?
Yes, for sure. Depending on where you're at in the world, they definitely can become a little more lax and not care, and then we'll say Europe for the other standard is on the high end. They're very risk adverse. They're very for making sure the person's safe, which is great. I love it. I mean, they really push the equipment standards, the personnel standards. And they, at the end of the day, they want to see people come home, which is great. And I think that's something more, we've kind of fallen behind on the times in terms of commercial dive safety and equipment standards. We've fallen behind on that. So, we haven't had updates since the 80s or 90s. And I'd really like to see us start getting more updates where we mandate 5-person crews, yep. And just different equipment standards so we can increase so people aren't holding on to this equipment from 50 plus years ago.
So you'd say Europe is more advanced than we are in terms of that?
In terms of equipment, yep.
And
personnel standards, yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So would you think that, because you have a lot of certifications, between certifications, training, education, that is a significant value add to the industry for people that are looking to find contractors to provide your services?
I think it is, because once they start getting into the details and caring about, there's a lot of companies out there that they'll give you maybe an experienced supervisor and then brand new people right out of dive school. And that's where a lot of issues come, or somebody that's been doing something for so long and they're like, oh, I've done it this way forever. And they're, it's just, they can't be bothered.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think it is now coming out where clients are seeing hey, I can pay for quality workers that are going to come in, get the job done in less than half the time it takes this other crew to do it. While they're more expensive, they're getting it done safer and more efficiently, and they're making us look good. Mm-hmm. And that's a prime example with us. That's what we've been able to come in and show where our quality is, because most of our guys are, we're 15 to 30 years, and that's a great, so, we have that 10% of the industry everybody wants.
Yeah.
Now, do you rely on the union for some of your workforce, or do you have your own team that kind of travels?
So the basis of how we started is, we have our own pool of people, and, we have the divers addendum. So we've started where we're working. So in this area specifically, we've started bringing in more and more local. And, we're trying to integrate them, and it's a culture change for them because they're used to, the contract, working for somebody who's like, and they got to defend for themselves, and whereas we're like, hey, this is the standard, this is where we expect you to be, we're going to take care of you, we need to make sure that you're taking care of us too in return.
Yep.
So it's getting those guys used to it, so it's a little bit of a culture shock for them, but then they're like, man, I love it. Like, it's nice to have good equipment and to not have to worry about your paycheck. Yeah.
That's great. Labor movement is increasingly intersecting with new industries like wind energy and infrastructure. How do you see skilled trades and union partnerships playing a role in the future of offshore wind and marine development?
I see it as a pivotal thing, and something as an example. I won't name names, but currently we're just on a sea trial, and we're coming up for a project here soon, and they had hired us to be diver riggers. I convinced them, I was like, hey, let us help you work the deck because it's in your benefit. Don't just pay us to sit here on standby, because my guys don't want to just sit in a hotel room. Like, everybody says, oh yeah, it's great to just sit around and get paid, but at the end of the day, people get bored, and it's not great. These guys like to work, and they're good at what they do, so we did that, and now even from that, they've increased the amount of roles we had. We took over the deck foreman position, and these are all UBC guys. We took over that, and now they're asking us to come and crew another vessel on another portion of the project that has nothing to do with diving. So I think people are starting to see the value in specific trades that want to go out there and work, not just collect a paycheck.
Yeah. And with this said, when we think about carpentry, we think about drywall, framing, concrete, doors, hardware, millwork. We don't think about underwater construction. So your company, you are proof that there's alternative paths to carpentry or underwater construction. So young folks that are coming into the industry, particularly carpentry, who have no idea this is available to them, if you were to get in front of them and talk to them, how would you pitch value in, hey, this is a great industry to be in, it's exciting, it's interesting, there's opportunity. Somebody has nothing to do with construction or diving, because there's a lot of people looking to come in. The question is, do they want to be in diving?
So I'm a firm believer of diving is a very rough industry, and there's a very high turnover rate. Like, there's probably in the 90-something% in the U.S. I would probably say it's like 98% turnover rate.
Really?
With what people, how many people, like, if you look at a class, I think there's actually one guy working with me from the commercial dive class I went to. He works for us now. He's actually over in Brooklyn. But there's two of us from a class of 35 people.
Wow.
And that was dwindled down within the first 2 years. So, there's some classes where people don't stay at all. So
what do you think the reason behind that is? Like, what are you hearing?
Because they promise such high wages and stuff, but the reality is, okay, so union, you have the apprenticeship, you have a 4-year apprenticeship. Now you what's nice about diving apprenticeship is you get that journeyman rate when you're working in the water, which is awesome. That's good for them, and it's a paid apprenticeship, awesome. But most people don't, even myself, I never for the longest time understood the union or knew enough about the union until I, as a company owner, started interacting with the union and started interacting with you guys and getting an understanding of it. Because it's just not that well known, and then especially when you come from the Gulf, the union is viewed as a very bad thing. No, this is going to hurt what we do. It's not, because we're bidding work, and we're going to be in the next less than a year. We'll be down in the Gulf working, and we will be paying.
They'd like you to think that so that they can pay you less. Is essentially
well, exactly.
What
so
you're
if I'm competitive on my rates right now, there's room for it. I'm telling you, and that's exactly it. There's just the money's going to the wrong place.
You're not in a business losing money, so it just makes sense.
No, exactly. I'm not here to go broke at the end of the day. I'm here to make sure, at the end of the day, I like to say I'm people greedy, not money greedy. And I'm here to keep all the people that I care about and that we continue to meet and care about working. But I would, if you're not in it for the hard work and understand that it is going to be a rough industry, and that it's great to stay in one spot, but it's hard as a diver. If you just want to do dive work, you can't just stay in one spot. You got to move. So the family life, and if you don't want to move around and bounce, you have to be willing to accept to do other trade work. You have to learn. That's where that apprenticeship is pivotal, because then they not only have the commercial diving skills, but they have the other trade skills like dock building, pile buck work. that's pivotal for them to stay busy and stay employed and be valuable to an employer. And I even tell guys, even if you just want to stay in diving, go get your weld certifications. Go learn how to like burn and like fabricate and do that type of stuff, and you'll be valuable. Learn the equipment, learn how to take the compressors and stuff apart, because at least with divers we can operate on our own equipment. We don't need the operators. You know, but knowing how to work on that stuff makes you just even more valuable to your employer. And at the end of the day, when you're going the extra mile, they're going to go the extra mile for you. Ideally,
or crossover skills to keep you busy in different industries.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
So diving is a lifestyle, depending on how much you obviously put into it. And if it's a lifestyle, tell a story that probably resonates with folks. Like, what keeps people diving? And I know we've talked about some of your dives off the coast of South America, and it could be historic dive, they could be archaeological dives, whatever it is. Like, tell a story about something exciting that you got to deal with that was probably high profile.
So I think I'll touch on it too. I'll give you a story and I'll tell you why. So for each person, it's different. Some people are driven by money in the industry. Some of them get into like the saturation diving and they're driven by the money. It's a great paycheck, right? But they don't love what they do. And then there's the other half who stay in it and have been in it for a long time, that they don't really care what they get paid. They just love the work and they love what they do. Now, some of those guys don't want to move up and be supervisors because they just love diving and that's what they want to do. And great, they're hammers and, you know, they do great things. So those are the two loves of why people stay in the industry, is either the money or because they just I genuinely love it. Like, there's nothing better to me than being in the water. But something that sticks out in my mind, I'll say one of the coolest jobs we did is with Schmidt. I won't name anything, but we helped them salvage a lift boat in Asia Pacific. We were doing the surface supplied mixed gas diving while they're doing the saturation diving, and we're doing sim ops. And you know, I think the guys were out there for like 4 months, and they're making good money.
Yeah.
And they were cutting up this massive, like the top of the wreck I think was at 150. The bottom of the wreck was at like 270. So that's a big ship. And we're cutting it up with chain pullers, cutting past with Broco. That's a cool job, regardless of who you are.
Yeah.
One of my favorites is the archaeological stuff down in Peru. You know, we were working with a company. They were expanding Port of Lima, and they uncovered a ship. It turned out to, you know, be a ship from like 1847, and it was just perfectly intact, like copper sheaths, hull, everything. Like, we're finding like 9-inch cannonballs and stuff. It was the coolest thing I've ever gotten to dive on. No, there was no gold, anybody, so don't get your ideas. That's not how I funded this business. That was one of our projects. But that is like getting to do cool things like that. And then also like the DPAA stuff, giving back to like my veteran community. And we have a lot of veterans in the industry and a lot that work with us. It's going out on those projects. The guys feel so involved, like they're emotionally bought in. And again, it's not construction work, and they're actually making a difference in some families' lives, like giving them the return of their loved one, you know, and having peace with that. So there's a lot of different cool things that you can do within the industry.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you taking the time to come here, tell this story, and I really appreciate the partnership that we formed over the last several years. I think it's something we can showcase throughout the industry, or for you throughout the world.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's such a niche, you know, division of carpentry that we offer, but even I'm learning as I go here. So really appreciate you coming on and talking with us today.
Yeah, anytime.
Thanks, Tim.
Yeah.